Hi guys, and welcome back to the Crochet Tour YouTube channel. In today's video I'm bringing you another new episode of Tor Tries, which is where I review a crochet pattern or a crochet book, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing Animal Friends of Pica Pau 3, so this is the third book in the series. And as always I'm going to be splitting this video up into a few different sections. So I'm firstly going to talk about the book, then I'm going to talk about the author, I'll show you what I've made from the book, I'll talk about what I liked and didn't like, anything I've learnt from the book, and then a final recommendation. So if you're interested in finding out more about this book, then keep watching. The book is available on pretty much any online retailer, so it's on Amazon and eBay and probably other places as well. At the moment it seems to be around £14, which I'll get onto that later on in the video, but I think is really good value for money. And it was published only last year, so in 2022, so it's still a fairly new book. And I got it in November of last year, so I've had it for nearly a year now. The number of patterns that you get is 20, so yeah, that works out, at less than £1 per pattern, which is really good. And then in terms of the level of difficulty, there's a 3-star rating system, so anything that's 1 star is easy, 2 stars is intermediate, and then 3 stars is advanced. So in terms of the split between those ratings in the book, there are 6 patterns with a 1-star rating, there's 10 patterns with a 2-star rating, and then there's 4 with a 3-star rating. So it is more heavily leaning towards the intermediate sort of level in terms of the spread of patterns in this book, but I think they're very well explained, so beginners can probably attempt 2-star patterns and probably even 3-star patterns. And you can always look up on YouTube if you're not sure how to do a certain stitch and things like that. So I feel like the patterns are fairly accessible, and I think that the star rating is fairly accurate in terms of the patterns that I tried from this book anyway. Then for the stitches that are used in the book, there's a whole variety of stitches used, so I won't list them all off now, but there is a very detailed section at the beginning of the book explaining how to do all of the stitches required. And also another good thing about the beginning of the book is that it explains the difference between X and V stitches, or yarn over and yarn under stitches. So Yan tends to use the yarn under technique, which is the less common way of doing single crochets, whereas I tend to use the yarn over, the more traditional method of doing those stitches, and both of them work. They'll just turn out slightly differently. The yarn under tends to be a more compact stitch, whereas yarn over is a bit wider, but she explains more detail about that in the book in case you're interested in learning what technique you should use to try and get the desired effect if you want your pieces to look more like what her final pieces look like. So the author of the book is called Yan Schenkel. She's an Argentinian crochet designer, and she does have some other books as well. So there is an Animal Friends of Pica Pau 1 and also Animal Friends of Pica Pau 2. I think I've reviewed the first book on my channel previously, but I don't think I've reviewed the second one. I think I've got that the right way around anyway, but I've definitely done another Pica Pau review on this channel. She does actually technically have a 4th book as well, which is only available in French and Spanish. So if you speak those languages, then you'll be able to access that. I mean, I'm sure these days you could probably just put it through a translation app anyway, even if you are English speaking, but I'm not sure what the name of that book is, but that's the first ever book that she wrote. But the good thing about Pica Pau 3 is that it includes some of those patterns from her first ever book in French and Spanish, but she's improved them and obviously also translated them into English in this book, so it allows English speaking people to have access to those patterns, which is really good. And in terms of her social media presence, she is on Instagram, so she's on Instagram under Pica Pau Yan, and she does have over 200,000 followers, so she is quite popular on there, and she seems to post a couple of times a month on her Instagram. So now moving on to what I've made from the book. I've made 3 patterns in total, and I've done 1 from each difficulty level because I like to do that to kind of get a good feel for the book. So the first pattern that I did was Amelia the giraffe. This is the 1-star pattern, and she is really tall, so this is her. As you can see, I can't even get this all on screen at once, but this is supposed to be the easiest pattern out of the 3 that I did. Then the second one that I did, which was the intermediate or 2-star pattern, was Humboldt the penguin. So this is him. He's a bit easier to get all on all on the screen at once, but he is still really big. I mean, just look at the size of him compared to me. So that is the penguin that I did. And then the third one, which was the advanced or freestyle pattern that I did, was Mabel the hedgehog. So this is Mabel. Again, I can fit her on screen, but she is still really big, but the smallest out of all three of those. And she's got some wings on the back as well. And I think the reason this one was given the 3-star rating might have been mostly due to the hair, because that was very time consuming to do, albeit it wasn't particularly complicated, because once you'd sort of done the first few pieces of hair, it was basically just replicating the same thing all over the head. But yeah, this one took a very long time to complete. And in terms of the yarn and the hook size that I used for all of those, I used Aran weight yarn and a 4mm crochet hook for all of them. Now, I think in the book Yan uses worsted weight yarn, which I think translates to Aran weight, so I think it's still the same weight of yarn, but she uses a 2.75mm crochet hook. And looking back at it, I maybe should have sized down a little bit, because you can see that those items turned out absolutely massively. But if you want to crochet some really big animals, then yeah, use a 4mm crochet hook as well, and yours will probably turn out big as well, like my ones did. So now moving on to what I liked and disliked about the book. So in terms of the things that I liked, some of this is going to be repetitive from my last Pica Pau review that I did, but I really do find that her patterns are very distinctive. They've got both a distinctive style and also colour palette, and I just really like it. And I just love the fact that you can instantly recognise when something has been designed by her, and that's no different in this book. It's still very consistent in terms of the style that she uses and her colour palette, so I always appreciate that in her books. The other thing that I really liked was that all of the instructions were very, very clear. There were no errors that I found in any of the patterns. And you'd think that once a book gets published, there wouldn't be any errors at that point, because so much testing had been done, but that's not always the case. I have had books before where there have been errors in them. So yeah, that's always a really good sign when there's no errors in any of the patterns that you're doing. And also the pictures were also very good in all of the patterns. So if there was ever anything that was a little bit more complicated in the pattern, there was usually some pictures that would help guide you through that, which I really appreciated, and it just helps you to make sure that you're on the right track and you're understanding and comprehending what she's writing down in words, and it's translating into what you're actually doing with your pattern. So I really appreciated that in the book as well. The other thing to mention is that I'd say that the variety of patterns was really, really good. It's always really good, and it always surprises me, because especially at this point now where she's got, at least 40 other unique patterns, if not more than that, because there's probably some from her first ever book that she didn't remake in this third installment of Animal Friends of Pica Pau. That means that she has so many unique ideas. I don't even know how she comes up with that many animals to crochet. I know there's loads of animals that exist in the world, but I'm just always really impressed with the variety that she manages to achieve, even with having such a high number of patterns already, and all of them being part of this same sort of animal pattern style. And then also just the final point is that, as I mentioned before, I really think this is amazing value for money when you're paying less than £1 per pattern and they're such high quality like this. Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing value. I think this book is worth £20, if not more than that. So yeah, for £14 you're getting a really good deal on this one. So for things I didn't like about the book, there was genuinely nothing. I think this is basically a perfect crochet book, and I never really have any complaints about Pica Pau books, so we'll just move swiftly past this section because there's nothing more for me to really say there. And then finally just moving on to what I learnt from the patterns I did as well. So there's probably just one key thing that I learnt, which was when I did this giraffe pattern, I don't know whether you can tell, but the head, the neck, the body and also the legs are all sort of crocheted together, so there's no sewing really required for that. The only sewing that you need to do is on the underbelly part here, but because it's underneath you can kind of hide it too, so if you're not very good at sewing, that's quite good. And I really liked this technique. It's not something that I've seen before. I'm sure it probably is used in other patterns because I don't think it's necessarily unique to Pica Pau's patterns, but it's just the first time that I'd come across it and really thought about, wow, that's actually quite a good technique to use when you need a sort of body shape like this that has, you know, legs and like the body coming out and then maybe a long neck as well. So I'm definitely going to adapt that for some of my patterns in future, just to make them have less sewing, because I think that most people don't really enjoy the sewing part of amigurumi. So yeah, that was the main thing that I learned from the patterns I did. So just to wrap the video up then, so would I recommend this book? I think the answer is pretty obvious. Yes, I definitely would recommend this book. You know, it's a great book for anyone that loves amigurumi, anyone that's ever had a Pica Pau book before. If they haven't got the third version, I'm sure they'll love this one just as much as the first and the second, because, you know, it's very similar to those, albeit the patterns are completely unique from those books. So it's not like you'll have any overlap, or, you know, there'll be anything that's the same across all of the books. They're all completely unique, but just follow a consistent style, which, you know, I really like. And also the quality of the books is just completely consistent as well. So across all of the books, the patterns are always really high quality. There's never any patterns in there that I'm like, oh, that looks like it's just, you know, a filler pattern, or, you know, that one doesn't look very good. They all look really good. And yeah, honestly, I'd say this is probably my favourite crochet book series ever. It's quite a tough one because I do really like the Pokemon crochet books as well, but I think the Pica Pau books are maybe even slightly more impressive because she's creating these and designing these characters herself, so she's not just copying something that already exists. And I'm not knocking on that, because that's basically all I do on my channel, so, you know, that's a perfectly legitimate way to create patterns, but it's so much more impressive that she comes up with these characters herself and she manages to create them in her own style that is just completely unique from other crochet designers. So yeah, 100% recommend this. If you don't have it, I'd honestly go out and buy it, and, you know, I think you'll have hours of fun crocheting all of the stuff in this book. As I say, I've only made 3 things from here, and that, you know, that's probably taken me 60 hours plus, so there's so many hours of crochet that you can get out of this book. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If there's any other crochet books that you've got your eye on and you'd like me to review, leave it in the comments below. I do have some books that are already in my collection that I just have never made videos on before, so I might even already have that book somewhere, you know, and I might have already done some patterns from it previously before I even had my YouTube channel. But yeah, that'll wrap this video up, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.